Hello, everyone. This is Shannon Riley from Backyard Pet Talk podcast. And today we have Fernando Sandoval on our talk to talk about pet insurance. He's from State Farm. So he's going to talk to us today about pet insurance and, just so we can have some information. I get asked all the time,
Yeah.
which pet insurance is best and does this or does this work? And there's a lot of pet insurance policies out there now. It's a growing field. But today, Fernando is going to be able to tell us more about how State Farm handles it and who they work with, and a little bit about how to work that policy. Because as veterinary expenses are going up, it's
Mhm.
really important for people to consider pet insurance these days because vet medicine is not getting cheaper. So hopefully we will answer some of those questions today about pet insurance. So welcome, Fernando. It's
Wonderful.
great to have you here today. And
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to finding out, a little bit more about that. But as we start out, it's always nice to kind of know a little bit about our guests, so that people know you work for State Farm. Tell us just a little bit about you and State Farm,
Mhm.
and then we'll get into pet insurance questions.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. Obviously, as you said, I'm Fernando Sandoval. Well, with State Farm, I work with the office of Ray Gonzalez. He is located in Oxnard. He's been there for about 10 years now. However, I've only been in the field with State Farm for about 2 years now.
Okay.
I was in the healthcare industry prior to working in insurance. I was doing medical equipment for 23 years. So I've always been kind of in a way to try to help people in any way, shape, or form.
And so if you're not in our area, Oxnard is in California. It's near
Yes.
me in Ventura. But obviously State Farm's available anywhere, but this is, Ray's office. So if you're local, you can
Yes.
check them out. But if you're not, State Farm's obviously available anywhere. So I didn't realize that State Farm even had insurance until I think I was talking to Ray. I knew they did car and house and all these other
Yeah.
types of insurance. And I didn't realize that they also do pet insurance. So, kind of tell us a little bit about how State Farm handles their pet insurance. And,
Yeah.
is it individual or is it involved in a house, your home insurance? Like, how does the pet insurance work through State Farm?
Yeah, and you're right. Nobody really ever thinks about State Farm for pet insurance. Everybody thinks
Mhm.
of State Farm as actually for just car insurance, right?
Mhm.
And there's actually other things that we do offer as well. But when it comes to pet insurance, we team up with Trupanion. So everything is done in-house. Obviously, if you need a quote, you just contact one of our office's agents here, obviously in the office, and then we're able to provide a quote immediately for you. Just a few questions. It takes basically not even 5 minutes to really go through and really you get you really, pricing at that moment.
Good. And
Yes.
because I'm assuming there's prices that are different from like a puppy or a kitten.
No, we only handle dogs and cats,
Okay.
unfortunately. That is the only one.
Okay.
Somebody called me the other day and said, "Can you insure my turtle?" And I said, I can't.
That's good
Yeah.
to know, because
Yes.
there are insurance companies for horses because I used to have a
Yeah.
horse, but that's a
Ah.
whole nother, ball of wax and a whole other thing. So that's
Gotcha,
good to
gotcha.
know. So someone gets
Yes.
a puppy or a kitten, or maybe they adopted a dog or a cat from a shelter that's older. When you're trying to do insurance, how does that kind of work? Is it by age? Is it by breed? How do you kind of determine how much everything's going to cost and what's included?
So we do have an age limit. We basically can only insure, obviously, through planning only up to age 13. However, it doesn't mean that the plan ends when your, pet reaches that age. It just means that, as you know, anybody over that age, we're not able to provide the services. But if you have somebody already that you insure since they were a puppy or a kitten, and obviously they live 15 years, 16, 17, some cats, live 20 years,
Hmm.
they will have the coverage. There's not a problem. It will not end for them. It'll be continued basically for all their life, basically.
Does the price that they start paying as a puppy stay the same, or does it go up as they get older?
That's a great question, and it does not. Pricing
Mhm.
actually does not increase over the years. You pretty much whatever pricing you get with, at that point, no surprises, no changes. Obviously, you just got to pay your deductible or your co-insurance because we don't cover it at 100%. It's usually at 90%.
Okay. Okay.
90% is what we cover, obviously, of course, after the deductible is met. But yes, so it does not increase over the years.
So, like human insurance, if you have a higher deductible, maybe you pay
Mhm.
less, or if you have a lower deductible, you pay more per month, or, does that come into play with pet insurance as well?
It does. It does. You can basically set up a deductible from zero all the way to $1,000.
Mhm.
Whatever you feel more comfortable with. Obviously, just like anything else, same thing is actually with auto insurance or anything really. If you start at zero, then obviously your premium will be a little higher. As you increase your deductible, your premium obviously is lower. So a lot of times it's really asking people, what do you feel comfortable with? Do you feel comfortable paying, $100, $250? Up to $1,000. Some
Mhm.
people may say, I feel perfectly okay, paying $1,000, or somebody might say, I can't, I gotta stay to maybe 500 the most.
Mhm.
But yes, but it definitely makes a difference once your deductible is higher, obviously.
And when you are doing this, like, so if you have a puppy, is it less expensive or more expensive for a premium for a puppy versus an adult dog? Or is it pretty much a dog is a dog or a cat is a cat?
No, it does. It does
Mhm.
changes, obviously. So I'm always telling people, if you know anybody, if you're thinking about getting a pet, get the insurance right away. Get it right away because yes, as the pet gets older, obviously, they'll check to make sure the pet, the pet has have basically a healthy life per se.
Mhm.
Obviously, but it's definitely a lot less expensive, once you get it at a younger age than if you're waiting until he's 10 or 12 years old. At
Mhm.
that times, a lot of times people will think about pet insurance at that point because they start getting sick. It's like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, I can't afford this anymore, right?
Yes.
So it's just like, so it's like, how much does this cost? And at that point, obviously it will be a little more costly than it would be if we would have done it, when they were
When
younger.
they were, yeah, when they were younger.
Mhm.
So,
Of
and
course.
when you're talking about, so, the premiums can be, lots of different things depending on your deductible and the age and all of those things. Do you have different plans that are like catastrophic, wellness, that cover different things? Or when you sign up with Trupanion, it's just per visit. It doesn't really matter if it was like a hit by car accident or if it's just vaccines and, a yearly checkup. Do you have different plans for that, or is it all just all in one?
So basically, it's one plan.
Mhm.
However, there are things that are not covered under that plan. And one of the things that we try to do when somebody does become a member, we send basically a summary of everything that is covered and everything that is not covered. For instance, testing may not be covered. Like if you want to test for something, that may not be covered. Pre-existing conditions, obviously, something that comes into an effect as well. What it is. A lot of times what we'll ask and say, where do you normally take your pet? So that we can go in and see what kind of records or what kind of lifestyle the pet has had, obviously. But it's only one plan. Somebody asked me today, will they pay for like grooming? Sometimes a lot of times that will be like medication or grooming. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, our plan does not do that. It does not cover that. So that would be a separate plan that you would have to have if you do want to have that coverage as well.
So you can have a basic coverage and then additional
Mhm.
things covered as well. So more different variety.
Right. Yes, correct. However, though, at that point, it would not be through us. It would have to be another person,
Oh, okay. So
another another company.
you'd have a second insurance,
Correct.
basically.
Yes, correct. And
Okay.
then what you have. Yes, correct. That will pretty much just cover that, the wellness part of the pet.
So with Trupanion, what kind of things does Trupanion cover on a regular basis? What
Mhm,
if somebody was interested, because that's always the question, am I
mhm.
going to be paying my insurance and am I going to get something out of it, or am I going to be paying all this money and then if my dog never gets hit by a car or never has a major health problem, because
Yeah.
some insurances only cover, major things and some cover everything. So what are some things that on a regular basis for a regular dog or cat, State Farm would be covering?
So it covers new or unexpected accidents. We understand that obviously, things happen, and then your cat falls off a tree or your dog or whatever that thing that happens. So things that are covered will be medications, surgeries, hospital stays, prescription foods will be covered. Prosthetic devices are also covered, supplements, and even some herbal therapy as well if you need to. Now, if we talk about what's not covered,
Mhm.
obviously at that point will be pre-existing conditions. That would be something that we want to be able to cover. Preventive care, we were saying like vaccines, flea,
Okay.
tick control, etc., like that. Those things will not cover. If they need to be neuter or spay, those things I would not cover. Or exam fees or sales tax. A lot of the times those things are not covered under this plan
Okay.
either.
So it's not really for the everyday wellness stuff, but it's
Mhm.
for those emergencies and those if something were to happen with that kind of
Correct.
thing.
Correct. Yes.
And so if someone, brings their dog or cat to the vet and they have Trupanion and they have
Mhm.
the insurance, how does that work once they go? So, with humans, we give our
Mhm.
insurance card and, they bill the insurance.
Yes.
And, but I know some insurance companies, you pay up front and then you get reimbursed. How
Mhm.
does Trupanion work and how do you guys do those kinds of things?
So Trupanion is actually one of the few, if not the only insurance actually that actually will is able to actually pay the vet directly. So no more reimbursement. And a lot of times, again, you were saying a lot of team people are afraid to even get insurance because again, they come up with $1,000. I was reading something earlier. You find fact, 100 million of the 160 millions of households in the U.S. Basically only 2 to 3% of those households have pet insurance at this moment,
Mhm.
for cats, and only barely, not even a percentage for cats, because people are always afraid. They say, it's extremely expensive, and then I got to come up with so much money up front. So we are
Mhm.
the only ones that we actually, as long as the vet is okay with that and is able to actually create an invoice, we can go ahead and pay them directly.
Yeah, some vets might not be able to send a bill out
Yeah,
to Trupanion
true.
and they want to be paid, in the moment. How
Mhm.
long do you know, and you may not know this, but do
Mhm.
you know how long it takes Trupanion to pay after a pet has been seen?
Directly to the vet, you're looking
Hmm.
at about anywhere 2 to 3 weeks turnaround
Okay.
pay time. So,
Okay.
it basically, obviously, you have to send it out. I know that at one point they were looking on trying to get those invoices electronically. And I'll
Hmm.
be honest, I'm not sure if that have been set up yet,
Hmm.
because a lot of the billing obviously is by mail. So obviously, it takes a little bit of time to get there. They are
Right.
based out of Seattle, Washington here. So they're not
Hmm.
too far, obviously, if you're in the West Coast,
Hmm.
obviously if you're in
Yeah.
this area. So obviously, sending the bill to them, obviously, it's not as far, obviously, if it has to go via mail.
I think that, that is, super important for people to know, but their vet might not be able to
Yeah,
hold that, they might need the payment because they've paid out
true.
medications and they've paid their staff and those things. So they might not be able to have that
That's
kind
true.
of that
Yeah,
longevity of it. But at least you know that you will get reimbursed also in not too long of a period of
right.
time.
Yeah, and I always tell people, set up a relationship with that, whether it's a hospital, whether it's, just a clinic, and let them know, the insurance you have, and see if you establish that relationship. I see that a lot of times people do have that availability because that be able to have Trupanion, pay the vet directly because they've been going there for many years and they have the relationship with them. Some people are able, I've seen that, a lot of times having that relationship is a big deal. Now, because otherwise, you have people that never takes their pets to the vet. So
Mhm.
if you show up and all of a sudden you got a $500 bill, if you haven't been there in 5 years, the vet is not going to be lenient to say, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. We'll bill the insurance."
Right. Yeah, that
Always
is
establish
true.
that relationship.
Very, very true. And
Yeah.
are there anything special besides so Trupanion, will pay the vet directly? Do you know of any other things that Trupanion maybe is different than some of the other pet insurances? But, people ask me all the time, which one? And I'm
Mhm.
like, I can't keep track of all the different pet insurances. But do you know, so are there
Yeah.
some things that Trupanion, besides paying the vet directly, that it's a benefit to being with Trupanion?
Yeah, so one of the things that obviously, number one, as a pet owner, you can choose any veterinarian you want. You can choose basically any clinic, any doctor, including emergency hospitals. That's a great benefit, obviously. So there's no really a network of care, how we have with adult insurance, that you got to go with a network. Not only these people are the ones that you can use. It's just important to choose when you want to take where you want to get your services, obviously, and you want to get your care for your pet. Basically, they're available 24 hours. Trupanion is available 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a week. If there's any questions, there is always somebody that can answer that. And, so that's important. That's important to people, because a lot of times, I don't know how many times you end up at the clinic or at a hospital and it's 10 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important, that at
And
point in
you
case,
could call ahead and say, "Hey, my
yeah,
dog has this. Is it something that is covered under my plan?"
your plan. Yes,
Hmm.
exactly. And that's why it's important, because accidents happen, and
Hmm.
you're running in the middle of the night, running to the clinic, to try to get service. So I think that's important. And the fact that obviously, we're teamed up with State Farm, who is an organization that has been in the industry, in business for over 100 years.
Hmm.
So obviously, that obviously that's a lot too. And once again,
Hmm.
now, It's not just Trupanion. If you have any issues for whatever directly with Trupanion, guess what? Now you have an alternate number to call to and say, hey guys, I'm having an issues with this. Can you help me? So we're there to help you as well. So it's another team that is available there to really help you when you need it.
And that's great. Now, something I was going to ask you next is what are some of the benefits of getting people have the option of getting pet insurance from,
Yeah.
anywhere. I mean, they can just go and do an internet search and they may or may not know anything about it. Maybe some, random pet insurance gives them the best quote or that they find. What are some
Right.
benefits of being with State Farm and having pet insurance? Like I said,
Yeah.
it was something I just recently realized that State Farm
Yeah.
even offered. So what are some benefits of having, State Farm be the
Yeah.
person you're getting your pet insurance through?
So if I'm correct, I don't believe there is really any insurance out there, pet insurance, that has a physical location in any states. Everything is pretty much done online.
Mhm.
Correct me
I
if I'm
think
wrong.
so. I think as far
So,
as I know, yeah.
yeah. So again, that is a great benefit, being able to be affiliated with State Farm. Again, being able to be able to walk into an office. For some people, that's important.
Mhm.
Instead of sitting in the phone, calling an 800 number, being able to have somebody advocate for you, being able to help you, somebody find the answers for you, because a lot of times, when it comes to medical and healthcare, the language, we don't all understand the language, obviously, because
Right.
we're not familiar with it. So I think that is extremely important to just have that, the ability and that peace of mind. A lot of people get pet insurance for three main reasons. You want the financial protection, you want the peace of mind, and you want access to quality care. And what
Mhm.
better way to do it, also to be able to pick up the phone and call and say, I need some assistance with this. Can you help me? So I
Mhm.
think that's important. Being able to be there for people, I think it's extremely important. So it plays a big part.
For sure. And now, if you had your car insurance, or through State Farm, do you
Mhm.
guys kind of bundle them together, or are they completely separate? Like if someone came in and said, "I'm getting my car insurance," and then happened to
Mhm.
notice that you
Mhm.
also have pet insurance, and they decided
Mhm.
they wanted to go with that together. What
Mhm.
is it something that you guys bundle, or are they just completely separate things?
So it is completely separate.
Okay.
It is completely separate. I mean, some things that you are able to bundle, like, we're talking about, obviously, about different things, like you have different discounts, multi-car discounts, multi-line discounts.
Mhm.
That would be can affect that will take effect only, like, say, if you have more than one car, or if you bundle your auto insurance with like a life insurance policy. I bet you
Mhm.
didn't know State Farm also provides life insurance.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when at that point you're able to bundle. But this is something, something completely
Completely
separate.
different. It's just a
Yeah,
service that you guys provide for the
right.
people that are, already State Farm, or well, they don't even have to be something that you have as an additional insurance. And is this available
Yes.
to anybody in State Farm anywhere, or is this something special local just to your office?
No, so this is actually available, in 2020, when Trupanion decided to, pretty much join forces with State Farm. At that point, they automatically basically became available in all 49 states.
Okay.
Everything became available in all 49 states, including Washington, D.C. So
Okay.
yes, pretty much anywhere in the
Anywhere.
country.
What's the one state? Is it as a Hawaii that you guys don't cover, or Alaska?
Hawaii, yes,
Hawaii. Okay.
yes,
Okay. So all
yes,
the continental states. Okay.
yes,
Um,
exactly,
okay.
exactly. Yes, so it's
But so,
available anywhere.
okay. So very good. Now, you
Mhm.
may not be able to answer this because it may be personalized, but can you kind of give a range of what a monthly, and I know there's going to be a lot of variances in
Yeah.
this because there's, young, older,
Right.
deductible, but out of just your experience is
Mhm.
it's the lowest like $20 a month or $50 a month or
Yeah.
$100 a month? Like, do you have a sense of, not that this is going to quote for anybody because there's so many variations, because sometimes I think people get like bogged down and are like, well, it's going to cost me $150 a month and I just can't even,
Right.
do that or something.
So I've seen, depending on the breed, depending on the age, all of the things that play a big part when obviously when processing the quote. But I've seen anywhere from, let's say, around $50, $60 to about $160, $170. And
Okay.
again, just like you said, the deductible makes a difference, and obviously makes a big difference. Obviously, the higher the deductible, the lower the payment.
Right.
Yes, I've
Okay.
seen it pretty much quite range,
Right. All across.
on the pricing. Yes, of course.
Just kind of gives people an idea when they're looking, for
Yeah.
this.
By the
Yes.
way, if your
Hmm.
pet is a service dog, you actually get a little bit of an extra discount.
Oh, okay. Now, do
Yes.
they have to prove it? Or would you guys have that requirement be part of, like a letter from a doctor, or
A lot of times you get that a little certificate. We don't necessarily request it when we do the quote, but we do
Mhm.
obviously ask them. And if that's the case, as far as I know, it's not really too difficult to get that done with your pet. But it would be most likely something that would maybe require later on directly when Trupanion is getting everything together and everything
Okay, so they
taken
might
care of.
require some kind of
They might
certificate,
require, yes,
something,
exactly.
but
But
so they can have a little bit of a discount if they're safe.
yes,
So, well,
exactly
good.
correct.
Are there any other things that maybe have come up that as you've been helping someone, get pet insurance that, might help someone who's thinking about it? Obviously, you've already said, right when you get them, the younger they are, before they have any pre-existing, that's the
Mhm.
best time to get them. Do you have any other advice that you might give somebody who's just thinking about if they should get pet insurance or not, or if they should work with
Mhm.
State Farm and Trupanion that they might be interested in that might help them?
I'll say don't be discouraged and just ask.
Hmm.
Don't be discouraged. A lot of times we think that we don't try new things or different things because we think that it's going to be expensive. But you don't know until you ask. You don't know
Right.
until you check. Like I said, it takes basically 2 minutes to get a quote. And at that point, it gives you an idea, obviously, what kind of monthly payments you're looking at, what kind of deductibles you're looking at. So remember, Trupanion will pay 90%,
Hmm.
of the bill, obviously, and minus the deductible as well.
Right.
But I'll say, always just ask, just find out. It doesn't hurt to ask. And you never know. You may be surprised. It may be something that it could be quite affordable because every time you go to the vet is what, $1,000, 500 to
Hmm.
$1,000. You know what I mean? Since you take your vet, obviously, and you can be spending a lot of money when you take your pet to the vet, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So you
just
could.
ask.
No, I think this was great information. I mean, I think people don't really always think about it. I get asked all the time about which one is best and, what it is. And it's always such a hard answer because it's like, well, it depends on, what
Yeah.
you're looking for and what you need. But it's great for people to know that State Farm, does do it because maybe, if you're already using it for your car and then you can just go into your agent and,
Yeah.
talk to them about it. And it's, a little less intimidating, like you said, than going online and trying to figure it out on your own by having
Yeah,
somebody
because
who can
obviously,
talk.
yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, I was reading an information the other day that most of us keep our pets for years, what,
Hmm.
15 years, 20 years. And they were saying that it's costing like around anywhere from 23,000 to $40,000 for the life of the pet to really,
Right.
pay for the care for the pet, for the cat
Exactly.
or the dog, obviously. Yes. It's gonna be quite expensive.
Exactly. So it can be expensive. Exactly.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
well, Fernando, I'm so grateful that you were able to be here and answer some of these questions. And hopefully
Yes.
people will have a chance to, check things out. We'll have the link so people can look into this more. But, at least you answered some questions because it is one of those daunting questions that people don't know. And
Right.
pet insurance is way more available than it used to be. So,
Yes.
and now they can even just go to their State Farm agent and get the
Yes.
information. So they don't even have to go to Google and just search for it. They can
Yeah.
actually talk to a person. So
Yeah.
that's a great
Yeah.
opportunity. So,
And by the way, they don't have to be a client of State Farm to be able to get this as well. They don't have to have car insurance or anything else with us. It can just be the pet insurance if they wish to
oh,
do so.
that's great to know too. So then,
Yes.
yeah, so they have even better. Thank you so much for being here. And hopefully that answered anyone who's listening their questions. And if they have some more questions, they can reach out to you. Or if they're not
Wonderful.
local, they can go to their State Farm agent and ask some more questions as well. So
Wonderful.
thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And so, everybody, until next time, thank you, Fernando. I appreciate you being here today.
Thanks for having me. Have a blessed day.